so that nothing gets cut off and that I am actually live. So good morning, everyone. I hope you've had an awesome week, and I hope that you enjoyed last Saturday. I did. Being an overcomer hearing that reminds me that no matter what's going on in my life, I have the power of God behind me. Isn't that great? I mean, that's huge to me. I'm typing in the comments right now. When you join, if you can just say good morning so I know who's here. All right, so today we are going to be talking about our name that God gives us, free. Free. What does the word free mean? So I asked this week, when you see the word free, what do you think about? And people commented air. One comment was air. One was, what's the catch? One was, nothing's forever free. There was, so free is an odd word because we do think it shouldn't, free means really what's the catch? But the definition of free is not costing or charging anything, having the legal or political rights of a citizen, not bound, confined, or detained by force, having no obligations as to work or commitments, not obstructed, restricted, or impeded, not being used or occupied. It's free. Capable of moving or turning in any direction, not permanently attached, but able to move about. What are things that cost us, bind us, confine us, restrict us, keep us from moving, that are permanently attached to us? Fear, addiction, lies, bitterness, oppression, rejection, punishment, shame, comparison, sadness, loneliness. Are you living in the wrong place? Are you under the control of the wrong person? Are you carrying out the wrong purpose? Man, all of that just seems so heavy, doesn't it? It's heavy, and it's hard to hear. It's hard to experience, and it's hard to see. It's hard to face. But thankfully, Jesus delivers us out of all of this darkness and all of the oppression and the heaviness that comes from all of these things. When things like this come against us and these things say to us, you can't handle this. You're not good enough. You will never make it. Christ in you says, yes, you can. You're free. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. 2 Corinthians 3:17. So when I was doing some searches of the word free, I came across a study that looked at the Israelites and the oppression they were suffering at the hands of the Egyptians. God heard their cries. He had a plan to save them, and he gave this plan to Moses, and he used Moses to lead them out of all of this mess. But Moses wasn't so sure about this. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been at a place where you're like, I think God's telling me to do this, but I just don't think I'm the right person for the job? Well, that's where Moses was. He was like, wait, who am I that I go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? God's response, now this is all going on in Exodus. So this is Exodus 3:11 and 12. And God's response to Moses is as relevant today as it was when he spoke it to Moses. I will be with you. I will be with you. The promise of God being with us helps us when we're facing all of those things that are dark and heavy. The people were frustrated. They were physically drained, emotionally drained. They were mentally drained. They were mad. They were longing for freedom from these things and these people that were making them feel all of this. But to have freedom, things had to change. They had to move. They had to change their location. They had to follow someone that they weren't really sure about. That person wasn't really sure about leading them. Things had to change. I mentioned at the beginning that people say all of these things that are weighing on them. And then sometimes we may say something like this: please just take this, fill in the blank, away from me. Please take the addiction to away from me. Please take this person who is punishing me or hurting me in a way away from me. But do we need to change in some way to bring freedom? Sometimes we do. I've said these things before. At one point in my life, I was so frustrated by my circumstances. I was tired of trying to make decisions about finances, what to do about the job situation I was in, how to handle things in my house all alone. You know, the toilet breaks or something needs to be replaced, or how do I just do this? Or I've just got to get my finances in order and I'm not very good at balancing my checkbook and keeping up with things, et cetera, et cetera. I was lonely. I was alone in all of it. I just wanted someone to help me with all of these things that life was throwing at me. So I prayed, God, please, I can't keep going. I can't keep making all these decisions alone. I can't keep fixing all of this stuff alone. I just wish I had someone in my life to help me do all of this. I was actually praying for a boyfriend, husband, someone to do these things that that person's responsible for, someone to be the head of this mess. I kept praying the same thing over and over and over. God heard me. He did. And I eventually found someone. Did you hear the last part of that sentence? I eventually found someone. For a while, I was very happy. I now had someone to help me with these things that I just didn't like to do, like balance my checkbook, put groceries away for me, help me organize things in my house, actually just to have someone to talk to, someone to plan this future with. I finally had someone. But very soon, those same fears of loneliness started coming back in because of circumstances. Hurt crept back in because of things this person did. Frustration and anger came back because what I thought was happening with my finances and my checkbook was not the case. Sadness came back in because this person experienced something in his life that caused him to be completely different and not the same person he was when I met him. I started defining myself as regret, embarrassed, bitter, shame, a failure. And guess what? I found myself alone again, making all those same decisions, trying to bring myself out of this hole again. Do you hear what I'm saying? I was alone. I was making these decisions. I was trying to bring myself out of this hole. There are times that come in our life and maybe we didn't do anything, but sometimes we did. Sometimes we kind of orchestrated what's happening instead of allowing God to. And now I'm telling myself again, I'm alone. God, I'm alone again. And so one day I stopped and sat for a while and I began to talk to God. And can you guess one of the first things that I asked? One of the first things I asked was, why did you bring him to me, God? And I heard clear as day, didn't he fit the list of things you've been asking for? Someone to help make decisions, someone who is organized, someone who is fun, someone, and the list went on. And the only thing I could answer was yes. Yes. He heard my cry and he answered my prayer. The person that came into my life fit the list. He was everything on the list. But there were many, many more important things that I should have had on the list. God gave me exactly what I asked for. I just didn't ask for the right things. Sometimes the thing we want to be free from is the one thing that God can use us to bring others to him. That's hard for me. God's called me for a season to be single. And I had to embrace that. Sometimes the situation we're in, the thing that is holding us really may not be. We need to look at that. Once my life was back to me and no one, it took me a while to stop blaming God for my circumstances and start asking him to help me. I realized that I was not alone in making decisions or planning or even organizing things. There are times, and those of you who know me know that I am as far from organized as they come. If you could see what's behind my computer screen right now, you would say, oh yeah, she lives in total chaos. What you see around me that this camera will pick up looks pretty normal. But God helps me with those things. There are times when I have to just stop and say, God, I don't know where to put all this stuff. I don't know what to do next. I need you to help me. And he does. I don't have to have that man, that person, because I have God. Why do I need that when I have God? He helps me plan. He helps me see what I need to do. He helps me make these decisions. And sometimes that person that came into my life back then, he's still there and he still helps me sometimes. He just wasn't the one that was supposed to fill that role for me as a boyfriend / husband, or maybe I am called to be single and that just wasn't how that person was supposed to fit in my life. So back to the study I found. The writer said that God gave the people a 5-word promise. He gave them hope. They would not be alone. He said, I am who I am, would be leading and guiding them. And through Moses, he did that. Man, and through Moses, the person who just asked, who am I that you're going to use me? Man, the things that God can use us for, those things that we go through, he uses them and it's freeing. There's just no other way to describe it except it is freeing. Paul put it this way in Colossians 1:27, to them God has chosen to make known among the Gentiles the glorious riches of this mystery, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. Hope. God gives us hope. And he tells us, you are going to be free from all of this stuff. I can take it all away. Jesus delivered us out of all of that darkness. If you've ever been in a situation where you just felt captive, you felt bound, I just think about it as being mashed down, chained. God can break all of that. Jesus can deliver you from all of that, every bit of it. All of those things can bring fear into our lives, and Jesus did not leave us here to do this alone. He's right there with us, and he will never leave us. Because of that, of the hope we have in Jesus, those chains and all that mess just falls off of us, and we're free. We're able to be the things that we read in the definition at the very beginning. We're free to move about the cabin. We're free to move about. We're free to do the things God has determined for us to do. We're free to love God. We're free to accept this free gift that Jesus gives us of salvation. We're free. It's freeing. If you've ever had all of that mess and then you felt that freeingness of, I can breathe. Man. So in this study that I read, one of them, I loved this statement. When we are living in God's presence, there's nothing to fear. Yes, freedom can be scary. Everything in the world tries to keep you from it. Even your old legalistic thoughts discourage you from walking that path. Be brave and courageous. Freedom is what you've longed for. It's yours. Every step you take as a child of God, He is there with you. Galatians 4:6-7 says, because you are His sons, God sent the Spirit of His Son into our hearts, the Spirit who calls out, Abba, Father. So you are no longer a slave, but you are God's child. And since you are His child, God has made you also an heir. Once we have received this freedom, the freedom from sin in our life, we cannot go back. The old you is gone. You are made new. I have a couple of questions. Some of these questions are questions I asked myself when I was struggling with that situation that I was in, and the truth that I needed to remove that person who was in my life and rely on God instead of a man, a human man. I asked myself, what are you afraid of? Are you too comfortable? Is it worth it to keep moving in this direction? Are you worried about what people will think? Do you think this is all there is for you? What do you think you have to, why do you think you have to live like this? You don't have to take on the identity of what is holding you captive, what is keeping you from striving and thriving, or what is binding you. You know those things that identify you. You know those things. As I've been talking, things are coming to your mind. You do not have to be known by these things. God says you are free. God calls you free. That gives me chill bumps. And you can be known as free, not by these things. I mean, God said it, so it's true. You know, when people say, I read it on the internet, and someone else replies, so it must be true. I read this in the Bible, so it is true. It is true. You can be free from all these things and take on that name that God has given you, free. Through the gift of salvation that Jesus gives us, we can be free from all these things. You are free. Free. Isn't that awesome? I love that word. And when we think about it this way, it is a little different than what we were mentioning in the comments on that post. I hope you have an awesome day today. I hope you enjoyed this. Let's close with prayer, and I will see you guys back here next week. And we will be talking about a new topic. Check out the post this week so you know what that topic is. God, I thank you so much for the freedom that you give us. I thank you for the fact that I can call myself free, because that's what you call me. That's one of the names you've given me. And I am so thankful for that. God, I thank you for every person in this group. I thank you for what they bring. And I thank you for giving them that name also, free. We're free. And we can only say that because of you. And we are so grateful for that. God, I pray right now over all of the ladies in this group. I pray that you will just touch them some way today. Give them what they need. Give them calmness if that's what they need. Give them rest if that's what they need. And whatever it is, God, I pray that you'll just give that to them. And I ask all of these things in Jesus' name. Amen. I hope you guys have an awesome week, and I'll see you back here next Saturday.